Hilarious folks, my name's Traven, and today I want to talk about my top things of spring 2021. For anyone new to the channel or just unfamiliar with the concept, this is a seasonal series inspired by Super Eye Patch Wolf's My Favorite Things, Clems's Things I Loved, and all the other media and merch roundup videos across this hellscape of a site, in which I review, ramble about, and recommend some of my favorite stuff of the last few months, with the occasional out-of-season straggler. And if you notice that something isn't here, then it probably means one of a few things. I didn't get around to it by the time I started making this video. Even if I did enjoy it, I have too many caveats and criticisms to recommend it, or I just couldn't get into it despite its obvious qualities. I just didn't like it. I don't have a lot to say about it beyond it was fun, it was interesting, or it was a good kind of pain in the ass. Or I'm hoping to maybe eventually make a video on it and want to save as many of my thoughts on it for that as I can. So with all that preamble out of the way, what say we start this with the stuff I found? There's been a lot of cool stuff floating around the internet lately, from full-blown productions to quirky puppet shows, from nuclear-era diatribes to frustrated rants, from the trip being vibrant to shit so horny I'm not even sure I can play any clips from it without this video getting... Wait, no please! But the thing that stuck with me is Skip Intro's Propaganda, in which he explores the history and depiction of police on TV. He's got a lot of fascinating and concerning insights into their televised representation, whether it be the heavy influence many police and even some military departments have on the way many productions can present things without losing funding for the project, and how much the tropes and cliches that come from that have stuck, to the many troubling ways these kinds of stories tend to, at best, justify and rationalize police brutality and their abuse of authority, to, at worst, actively glorifying it, something even the most well-meaning of shows can stumble into. And with the revelations the world's had about the deep-seated systemic and cultural problems in many police departments, not just in the US, but across the world, and how little seems to have been done to really address them, I think it's a series that's important to keep an eye on. If for nothing else, then to, at the very least, see how the perceptions and mentalities that defend them have managed to stick around. I'll admit, I'm not sure how to even begin approaching this part, visually or wordily, since what little music I do listen to is limited to playing soundtracks on loop. Movies, anime, video games, take your pick. And I'm not much of a musically inclined person, so it's hard to really describe how or why I like a song or think it's good beyond, as the young people say, it giving my brain the goopy goblin goo. What the fuck? But my recommendations have been stuffed with a lot of cool music recently. Why? Fuck if I know. And my favorite discovery from it is Ex-Lyd. They've just got this great chiptune, I hope is the right word, vibe. It almost feels like the kind of thing you'd hear from a best hits compilation of old arcade games. From classic side-scrolling beat-em-ups to high-octane space racers. But given this almost modern spin, that's just the kind of thing I can't get enough of. So, check them out. I always wanted to get into Bo Burnham stuff, and man, I really fucking picked quite the starting point, because this special, created entirely by Burnham over the course of a year of lockdown, is just him spiraling into a complete mental breakdown. And it's pretty damn good. I should probably explain myself a little here. A lot of this special revolves around poking fun at internet culture, using the power of music to create this mini musical of tongue-in-cheek jabs and critiques of everyone and everything online, including some admittedly mean-spirited ones, and others that are just shockingly accurate. But as it goes on, all those layers of satire crumble away. After going through a lot of his stuff afterward, it seems to me that his comedy is built around this struggle to balance some semblance of authenticity with the irony that defines the internet. And throughout the special, it shows how self-destructive the latter can be, as without someone to bounce it off of, all that humbling self-awareness caves in on itself to reveal the anxieties and insecurities hiding underneath that it was meant to divert everyone's attention away from, including Burnham himself. It's just something that feels very true to my experiences with the online world. The internet is where sincerity goes to die, and where any genuine attempts at self-expression are turned into a laughingstock. And the metatextual awareness everyone's expected to operate under can just feel suffocating. And with the way the last year has been, and how much everyone has become painfully familiar with the ins and outs of this digital day-to-day, it's the kind of thing that just strikes a nerve. Resident Evil Village is a survival horror directed by Morimasa Sato and developed by Capcom that follows Ethan Winters as, years after the Louisiana incident, he's once again dragged into a world of nightmares, this time finding himself stranded in an old European village full of monsters as he tries to save his daughter and escape. I've heard some people describe this game as almost feeling like a theme park ride, and I think it's a pretty apt description of what, for me anyway, is its core appeal as it guides the player through this well-structured experience. The game is split into a few different sections, each one embodying its own kind of classic folk horror, ranging all the way from surviving a werewolf attack in an abandoned town, to a romp through a rickety old harbour riddled with sea monsters, to an unnerving crawl through an uncanny dollhouse, to a battle through a factory full of fucking robot zombies, to, of course, sneaking through a grand old castle full of witches, vampires, and the internet's favourite Lady Dimitrescu. At least until, spoilers, she turns into a fucking dragon and immediately gets 10 times better. Yeah, baby, where my monster fuckers at?
Don't fucking expose me!
It guides the player through these jump scares and set pieces with just the right kind of tension and excitement. And personally, I love the replay value it has, with the rewards it gives you for beating the game quickly and efficiently, the improved weapons and upgrades you can find in New Game Plus, and don't even get me started on the Mercenaries mode, it's so good. While there's definitely a lot of ways I think the game could have connected a lot of these dots more smoothly, especially with its story, which just kind of feels like it was crammed in after the fact, it's also everything I love about the franchise, as it embraces the wacky B-movie tone of its world and just leans into the horrifying absurdity that comes with it. Soul is an animated film directed by Pete Docter and produced by Pixar Animation Studios and Walt Disney Pictures that follows Joe, a struggling musician who, shortly after getting his big break, just fucking dies, and goes on an existential journey to reconnect his soul with his body before it's too late. It's honestly a movie I wish I'd gotten around to sooner because, like most Pixar films, it's pretty solid, but more importantly, it's a story that asks one of the most classic philosophical questions anybody can ever ponder. What's the point of life? It's a pretty abstract idea, and for as goofy and cartoony as many of its literalizations of the concepts behind it are, there's a lot of creativity in what it does do with them, whether it be creating a family-friendly presentation of both the after and pre-life, to even how it turns abstract 2D line work into fully fleshed out characters in a 3D environment. But what I think makes it work is just how well it acknowledges how difficult a question it is to really answer. Everyone's always going to struggle with figuring out what their purpose in life is, and what it is about their path that gives them the spark to follow it through to the end in a way that feels meaningful. And how sometimes, even when people find the answer they want, it's not really the answer they need. It emphasizes just how easy it can be to miss out on so much of life if you don't take the time to actually enjoy it. And it's something that just hit the right note for me. The Mitchells vs. the Machines is an animated film directed by Mike Rianda and produced by Columbia Pictures, Sony Pictures Animation, Lord Miller Productions, and One Cool Films about the Mitchells, a dysfunctional family of oddballs including Katie, the aspiring filmmaker daughter, Aaron, the dinosaur-obsessed son, Linda, the caring wife, Rick, the out-of-touch dad, and Monchi, the dog. As after an impromptu family road trip to bring Katie to college, they find themselves caught in the middle of a robot apocalypse. It's a movie I've been looking forward to since it was first announced, if for nothing else than it simply being from the same team behind Spider-Verse, and in a lot of ways it's clear to see their fingerprints all over this film, with its dedication to creating a distinct style built around bringing a kid's sketchbook to life. But as it went on, I started getting a very specific vibe from it, with all the wacky shenanigans, sporadic cutaways, outdated pop songs, memes, cartoon logic, on-the-nose messages. It all just felt kinda
cringe. There's no other word for it.
But that's not a bad thing. In fact, it seems proud of it, and I'd be lying if I said the hectic chaos of its narrative and its characters, and the main jokes it pulls out of them, didn't get me laughing my ass off.
Butterfly formation! Now.
No!
Come on, Aaron!
Family
And honestly, considering its focus on the strained relationship of a family trying to reconnect, with parents trying to understand what their kids are into these days and kids trying to understand why their parents find it so hard to keep up, it's a pretty fitting tone for it to lean into. Sure, maybe it's trying a little too hard, but it's having a lot of fun doing so, and it's something I can't help but appreciate. This year's contender for I'm Not a Furry But left a pretty strong impression on me, as Odd Taxi, an original anime series directed by Baku Kinoshita and produced by OLM and PICS, follows Arakawa, a walrus taxi driver in a world of anthropomorphic comedians, idols, and gangsters, as he and his many clients get wrapped up in a criminal conspiracy centered around the sudden disappearance of a high school girl. It's kind of hard to explain the appeal of this show concisely. A show built around wacky characters just talking is something that works far better than it really has any right to, and I think a big part of that comes from just how weird the characters themselves are, as its cast ranges all the way from a porcupine mob boss who speaks only in raps and rhymes, to a college student desperate for fame who builds an internet career off of threatening gangsters, to to a villain whose whole fucking backstory is that he got addicted to gacha games and is sent on a murderous rampage because Arakawa's driving made him lose the best role he's ever had in his fucking life. And the deeper it goes and the more connections it makes between the many seemingly disparate elements of its world, the deeper I find myself getting drawn into its proverbial rabbit hole. For as many oddities as it's filled with, the fact that it simply plays them straight and follows them to their logical conclusion is what makes it so compelling to watch unfold, because you never really know which way this quirky conspiracy is going to turn next. War never changes. Neither does the propaganda that justifies it, and it's something that 86 is deeply concerned with. Directed by Toshimasa Ishii, produced by A1 Pictures, and based on the light novels of the same name by Asato Asato, it's set in a world at war, as the Republic of San Magnolia defends itself from the robotic swarms of the Empire of Gaiad, with their own autonomous machines known as Juggernauts. However, they're not entirely mechanical, as they're piloted by the 86, people who sit outside the confines of the Republic's ethno-supremacist ideals, and who, through years of propaganda and misinformation, were systematically dehumanized to the point of being seen as subhuman, and thus can be justifiably used for war. The story specifically centers around the Spearhead Squadron, the Republic's elite fighting force, and their new handler, Vladilena Miletse, a military officer who's not shy to let her disdain for the government's treatment of the 86 be known, as they slowly get to know each other and as the dark secrets of this seemingly endless war are revealed. Just like Miletse, the series isn't afraid to dig into the exploitative and cruel structure of this world, whether it be in the apathy and disregard many Alba, the white-haired race of the Republic, have for the 86, and the way those in power go out of their way to shut down any attempts to help, or even in the ignorance even the more sympathetic members of this country can have about the disconnect between their situation and the 86's.
あんたにしてみれば86の1匹や2匹当死のうが家に帰ったらすっかり忘れて夕食楽しめる程度の話だろ。そりゃこっちだって暇だったからさ。あんたの自分だけは差別とかしません、豚扱いしませんって勘違いの聖女ごっこにどうでもいい時なら付き合ってやるよ。
It only gets worse as it explores the day-to-day of the 86 themselves, as their carefree dormitory life out in the woods is contrasted against the bloodshed and sacrifices they make out on the battlefield. Its cast of goofy kid soldiers slowly getting whittled down to just a fraction of what it started with. While I could critique the generic aesthetic of its overall look, I can't deny that both in its narrative and animation it doesn't pull any punches. Because between the fruitless efforts to reform and improve a system that's fundamentally built around discrimination, and its characters' dreams of one day escaping this hellhole, there's this space where they find a few moments of joy, where they can bond over long nightly conversations, laugh at each other's shenanigans, and make the most of what little time they have left together. That warms my heart just as quickly as it breaks it. It's not just my anime of the season, but I think it might just be my show of the year. And yeah, those are my thoughts. Gotta say, I've been feeling weirdly optimistic recently, which is honestly a lot more than I can say about how I've been feeling about the last year generally, which I'm sure many people can relate to. Granted, a big part of that might just come down to me finally getting vaccine, and I'm also painfully aware of how easily things could go wrong, but still. Anyway, hope you're staying safe, keeping your distance, washing your hands, wearing a mask, getting vaccinated if you can, and let me know what you think. If you agree, disagree, what your favorite things of the last while have been, what you're looking forward to in the next few months, etc., and thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this and want to see more, then check out my last video, where I talk about what I love about the 2017 short film In a Heartbeat, or watch me ramble about all the weird details of Jujutsu Kaisen's horrifying world, and why I think they make it work so well. And don't forget to like, comment, share, and of course, subscribe to come flag me. Hit the bell to stay notified, follow me on Twitter for more updates, ramblings, poor attempts at humor, follow me on Instagram for semi-regular art stuff, and hopefully, I'll see you later.